I was standing in the boardroom at Titan Solutions, 3 hours into what should have been the final negotiation session for a $680 million deal, when my boss interrupted my presentation to the client and announced I was fired. Security was already at the door. The room went completely silent. Global Tech Industries representatives stared in disbelief. I looked at Craig Belmont, my boss, and saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Pure calculation. He actually smiled. Then I smiled back, reached into my briefcase, and pulled out an envelope. The fluorescent lights in that conference room suddenly felt too bright. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears as the security guard shifted his weight by the door, clearly uncomfortable with what was happening. Craig stood at the head of the table, his arms crossed over his expensive suit, looking like he had just won something. Let me back up and explain how I got here. My name is Penny Lawson, and I am 32 years old. I have an MBA from Harvard Business School and spent the last 10 years building the corporate development division at Titan Solutions from absolutely nothing. When I started, we were a mid-sized logistics software company with decent technology but zero strategy for growth. I changed that. I identified acquisition targets, built partnerships, and most importantly, I knew how to close deals. The Global Tech deal was my masterpiece. 18 months of work. I had identified Global Tech Industries as the perfect strategic partner 2 years ago when I saw them present at a conference in Chicago. They were a massive corporation looking to modernize their supply chain technology, and we had exactly what they needed. Our proprietary logistics platform could save them hundreds of millions in operational costs. I spent months just getting a meeting with their chief strategy officer, Marcus Bradford. I attended 4 more industry conferences, positioned myself on panels where I knew Global Tech executives would be present, and wrote 3 white papers on supply chain optimization that their teams cited in their own internal reports. When I finally got that first meeting, I was prepared. I knew their pain points better than they did. The deal I structured was complex and beautiful. Global Tech would acquire our logistics software division for $680 million. The structure included performance-based earnouts, careful IP transfer provisions, and integration clauses that protected both parties. It took 18 months of negotiations, due diligence, legal reviews, and relationship building. I lived and breathed this deal. Then 6 months ago, Craig Belmont joined Titan Solutions. He came from a larger firm in New York, brought in as executive vice president, which put him directly above me in the hierarchy. Our CEO, Richard Stanton, told me Craig had extensive experience in corporate development and would be a valuable addition to the leadership team. Richard said Craig would help me scale what I had built. From day one, something felt wrong. Craig would attend meetings I had organized and then summarize them to Richard as if he had led the discussions. He would take my strategic memos, rewrite the first paragraph, and present them as his own work. When I raised concerns, I was told I was being territorial. When I provided evidence, I was told I needed to be a better team player, but I kept my head down and focused on closing the Global Tech deal because I knew it would speak for itself. A $680 million acquisition would be the largest deal in Titan Solutions history. Nobody could take that away from me, except Craig just did. In front of Helen Rutherford, the CEO of Global Tech, her chief strategy officer Marcus Bradford, their general counsel, and our own legal team, Craig announced that I was being terminated for performance issues. He thanked me for my contributions and said he would personally ensure the Global Tech transaction closed successfully. The Global Tech team looked horrified. Marcus Bradford actually stood up from his chair. Helen Rutherford's face went blank. In that way powerful people's faces do, when they are furious but controlling it. Our general counsel, Amanda Torres, looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Amanda was 52 years old, sharp as a knife, and had been with Titan for 15 years. She knew every contract, every clause, every potential legal issue. And right now, she looked terrified. The security guard took a step toward me. I stayed calm. I had known this moment might come. Not specifically, but something like it. 3 years ago, when I was promoted to senior vice president, I had negotiated my employment contract very carefully. My mentor, Patricia Caldwell, had warned me that successful women in corporate development often got pushed out right after their biggest wins. Men would take credit, rewrite history, and position themselves for the next promotion. So I protected myself. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a sealed manila envelope. I walked it over to Amanda Torres, who was sitting at the conference table with her hands folded, her knuckles white. "Amanda," I said clearly, "you will want to review Exhibit F from my employment contract. Everything you need is in here." Amanda's eyes widened. Her hand trembled slightly as she took the envelope. I turned to Helen Rutherford and Marcus Bradford. "It has been an honor working with you. I trust you will make the right decision." Then I walked out of that conference room with my head high, my briefcase in hand, and the security guard trailing awkwardly behind me. As the door closed, I heard Craig's voice, sharp and confused, asking Amanda what I was talking about. I smiled the entire way to the parking garage. My hands did not start shaking until I was sitting in my car in the parking garage. I gripped the steering wheel and let myself feel it for exactly 3 minutes. The humiliation, the betrayal, the rage. Then I took a deep breath, started the engine, and drove home. My apartment was in a neighborhood called Lincoln Park, about 25 minutes from the office. It was a 2-bedroom place on the 4th floor, with big windows and decent light. When I opened the door, Bailey came running. Bailey was my 3-year-old rescue dog, a mixed breed with floppy ears and the most trusting eyes I had ever seen. I adopted him 2 years ago from a shelter, and he had been my constant companion through long work nights and stressful deal negotiations. I sat on the floor and let Bailey climb into my lap, which was ridiculous because he weighed 65 pounds, but I needed it. I buried my face in his fur and let myself feel everything for exactly 15 more minutes. Then I stood up, fed Bailey his dinner, and opened my laptop. I had work to do. Let me explain Exhibit F. 3 years ago, when I was promoted to Senior Vice President of Corporate Development, I was 29 years old and the youngest person at that level in the company. I knew I had a target on my back. I had seen what happened to successful women in similar positions. They would build something incredible, and then a man would be brought in above them, take credit, and push them out. Patricia Caldwell, who had been Vice President of Strategy before she retired, warned me explicitly. Patricia was 68 years old, brilliant, and had spent 40 years in corporate America. She had seen everything. Over coffee one Saturday morning, she told me that talent and hard work were not enough. I needed to protect myself legally. She introduced me to Douglas Hampton, an employment attorney who specialized in executive contracts. Douglas was in his 50s, had a quiet intensity, and understood power dynamics in corporate structures better than anyone I had ever met. Together, we drafted a clause that we buried in my 70-page employment agreement. It was labeled Exhibit F, titled Deal Origination and Completion Rights. The clause stated that any deal I personally originated and negotiated past the letter of intent stage required my direct involvement through closing. If I was terminated while actively working on such a deal, I had 2 options. Option A, receive 25% of the transaction fee or success bonus that Titan would earn from closing the deal. Option B, serve as an independent consultant to complete the deal, with full veto rights over material changes to the terms I had negotiated. The clause had specific definitions. Originated meant I had identified the target, initiated contact, and built the relationship. Negotiated past LOI stage meant we had signed a letter of intent with the other party. Both criteria were objectively provable through documentation. When I negotiated this clause, Titan's HR department reviewed it. They consulted with Amanda Torres. Everyone agreed to it because it seemed theoretical. They assumed I would never be fired while actually working on a major deal. They assumed wrong. The global tech deal met every criterion. I had identified global tech as a target 2 years ago. I had initiated every contact. I had built the relationship with Helen Rutherford and Marcus Bradford personally. We had signed the letter of intent 11 months ago. The deal was in final negotiations. I was actively working on it when Craig fired me. Exhibit F was now in play. I spent the evening at my kitchen table, Bailey asleep at my feet, reviewing every document related to the global tech transaction. I had copies of everything on my personal encrypted drive, which was completely legal since I had negotiated the right to maintain my own deal files as part of my employment contract. At 8:30 that evening, my phone rang. It was a number I recognized immediately. Marcus Bradford, from Global Tech. "Penny," Marcus said when I answered. His voice was tight. "What just happened?" "Craig Belmont fired me," I said calmly. "In front of your team. You were there." "I know what I saw," Marcus said. "I need to know what it means." "Helen pulled the plug on the meeting the second you left. She told Craig that without you, we are pausing all negotiations." He tried to explain that he could handle everything, but Penny, he could not answer basic questions about the integration plan. "Your integration plan. The one you spent 6 months designing." I felt a rush of validation but kept my voice steady. "Marcus, I appreciate you calling. I am not at liberty to discuss Titan's internal decisions. But I will say this. Have Helen's general counsel call Amanda Torres at Titan. There may be a path forward for the deal. Helen wants to know if you can still be involved," Marcus said. "We trust you. Not Titan. Not Craig. You. Tell Helen I received her message," I said. "The next 48 hours will be very interesting." I hung up and smiled. Then I called Douglas Hampton. Douglas answered on the second ring. "Penny, I have been expecting your call. Exhibit F is triggered," I said. "I know," Douglas replied. "Amanda Torres called me 2 hours ago. She is reading the envelope you gave her right now and realizing what she is dealing with. Titan has a serious problem, and you hold all the cards. Let me ask you a question. What do you want?" I thought about it. What did I want? "I do not want to go back to Titan," I said slowly. "But I want to complete the global tech deal. I built it. I earned it. And I want Craig to understand exactly what he did wrong. Then we negotiate from a position of absolute strength," Douglas said. "I will draft a consulting agreement tonight. Tomorrow morning, we send it to Titan with a 48-hour deadline. They either agree to your terms, or the deal dies and their board will want to know why." "What are my terms?" I asked. "You tell me," Douglas said. "But I suggest the following. $500 per hour for your consulting time. 20% of the success fee when the deal closes. That is approximately $3.4 million. You maintain full authority to negotiate with Global Tech. And Craig Belmont is removed from anything related to this transaction. If he shows up to a meeting, if he reviews a document, if he even hears an update, you walk away immediately." I felt something unfamiliar. It took me a moment to recognize it. "Power. Send the agreement," I said. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. 12 were from Titan Solutions numbers. 3 were from Marcus Bradford. 2 were from Helen Rutherford, personally. I did not return any of them. Instead, I went for a run with Bailey through the park near my apartment. It was early September, and the morning air was cool and clear. I ran 5 miles, came home, showered, and made myself breakfast. Then I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop and waited. At 9:45, Douglas Hampton called. "I sent the consulting agreement to Amanda Torres and Richard Stanton at 7 this morning," he said. "I have received 4 phone calls from Richard, 3 from Amanda, and 2 from Craig Belmont, none of which I answered. I told them they have 48 hours from the timestamp of my email, which means they have until 7 a.m. on Thursday. It is currently 9:45 on Tuesday. What are they saying in their messages? I asked. Richard is apologetic and wants to negotiate. Amanda is professional and wants to discuss terms. Craig is angry and threatening legal action, which is entertaining since he has no grounds whatsoever. And Global Tech? Helen Rutherford called Amanda Torres yesterday evening and made Titan's position very clear. Without you, there is no deal. Global Tech will walk away and pursue other options. Titan stands to lose not just the $680 million transaction, but also the $17 million success fee they would earn from their investment bankers for closing the deal. I did some quick math in my head. If Titan lost this deal, their stock price would drop. Richard Stanton would face serious questions from the board. Craig Belmont's entire strategy to position himself for CEO would collapse, and I would simply walk away. Let them wait, I said. That afternoon, I received a text message from a former colleague named Sarah Brennan. Sarah had worked in finance at Titan but left 6 months ago to join another firm. We had stayed friendly. The text said, "Penny, are you okay? Word is spreading fast. Craig has been telling everyone you resigned because you could not handle the pressure. People are asking questions." I texted back, "I am perfectly fine. The truth will come out soon enough." Sarah responded immediately, "For what it is worth, nobody believes Craig's version. He has been pushing out your allies for months. We all saw it happening. That was useful information. Craig had been executing a plan. This was not impulsive. This was calculated." At 6:15 that evening, Richard Stanton called me directly. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message. "Penny, this is Richard. I need to speak with you urgently. What happened yesterday was unacceptable, and I take full responsibility for not understanding the situation. I would like to discuss your return to Titan with a significant promotion and compensation increase. Please call me at this number anytime, day or night." I saved the message and did not call back. At 7:30, my phone rang again. This time it was Helen Rutherford. I answered. "Helen, good evening. Penny." Helen's voice was calm but firm. "I am calling to tell you that Global Tech will not move forward with this acquisition unless you are directly involved. I have made this clear to Richard Stanton. Whatever happened at Titan is their internal matter. But you have my complete trust and confidence. If you are willing to complete this transaction, we are willing to wait for you." "Thank you, Helen," I said. "That means a great deal to me. My attorney has sent Titan a proposal for my involvement as an independent consultant. If they accept, I will complete the deal with the same level of commitment I have always shown." "Good," Helen said. "And Penny, when this is over, I would like to discuss something else with you. But first, let us close this deal properly." I hung up feeling something I had not felt in months: respect. Wednesday morning, I received an email from Amanda Torres requesting a call. I called her at exactly 9 a.m. "Penny," Amanda said immediately, "I owe you an apology. I knew about Exhibit F when you negotiated it 3 years ago. I should have flagged it to Richard when Craig started talking about your performance. I did not, and that was my failure." "Thank you for saying that, Amanda," I said. "What is Titan's position on the consulting agreement?" "Richard wants to meet with you in person. He wants to offer you executive vice president and a significant raise to come back." "I am not coming back to Titan," I said. "But I will complete the Global Tech deal as an independent consultant under the terms Douglas sent you. You have until tomorrow morning at 7 to accept. If you do not, I walk away, and you can explain to your board why the largest deal in company history collapsed." There was a long pause. Then Amanda said quietly, "Penny, what do you want me to tell Richard about Craig?" "Tell him that if Craig Belmont is involved in this transaction in any capacity, I terminate my consulting engagement immediately. No meetings, No documents. No updates. If I see him, I am gone. Understood, Amanda said. I will call you back within 2 hours. She called back in 90 minutes. Titan accepts all your terms, Amanda said. Richard will sign the consulting agreement this afternoon. Craig has been removed from the Global Tech transaction. Your terms are $500 per hour, 20% of the success fee, and full negotiating authority. You start immediately. Have Richard send the signed agreement to Douglas, I said. Once I receive it, I will contact Helen Rutherford to restart negotiations. I hung up and sat very still for a moment. Then I called Douglas Hampton. We won, I said. No, Douglas replied. You won. This was all you, Penny. The clause was just the tool. Your integrity and preparation were the weapons. That afternoon, I received the fully executed consulting agreement. I reviewed every word with Douglas, then countersigned it. I was now an independent consultant, not an employee. I worked for myself. Titan Solutions was now my client. I called Marcus Bradford. Marcus, this is Penny. I am now serving as an independent consultant to complete the Global Tech acquisition. Can we schedule a meeting with Helen and your team to restart negotiations? How is Friday morning? Marcus said immediately. Helen cleared her calendar. Friday works perfectly, I said. Then I allowed myself exactly 10 minutes to feel the victory. After that, I got back to work. There was still a $650 million deal to close. Penny. Helen's voice was calm but firm. I am calling to tell you that Global Tech will not move forward with this acquisition unless you are directly involved. I have made this clear to Richard Stanton. Whatever happened at Titan is their internal matter, but you have my complete trust and confidence. If you are willing to complete this transaction, we are willing to wait for you. I arrived exactly on time, dressed in a navy blue suit, carrying my briefcase with every document I needed. Amanda Torres came with me, representing Titan. Craig Belmont was nowhere to be seen. Helen stood when I entered and shook my hand firmly. Penny, thank you for making this work. Thank you for your patience, Helen, I said. I apologize for the disruption. The disruption was not your fault, Helen said, looking directly at Amanda, who had the grace to look uncomfortable. Let us talk about closing this deal properly. We spent 4 hours going through every outstanding issue. There were questions about integration timelines, IP transfer protocols, employee retention packages, and performance milestones. These were complicated technical details that I had been working on for 18 months. Craig would have been completely lost. I answered every question clearly and provided documentation for every position. At one point, Marcus asked about the revenue projections for the software division we were acquiring. I pulled up a spreadsheet and walked through the numbers, showing 3 years of historical performance and conservative growth estimates. Diane Foster, the general counsel, asked specific questions about warranties and indemnifications. I had drafted those clauses myself 6 months ago, so I explained the rationale behind each provision. By the end of the meeting, Helen looked satisfied. Penny, this is exactly what we needed. I see no reason why we cannot move toward closing within 60 days. I agree, I said. I will coordinate with Amanda to finalize the remaining documents. As we were gathering our materials, Helen said, Penny, can you stay for a few minutes? I would like to discuss something else. Amanda left, and it was just Helen, Marcus, Diane, and me in the conference room. Helen sat back down and gestured for me to do the same. I want to talk to you about what happened at Titan, Helen said. But not from a legal perspective. From a human perspective. You handled that situation with more grace and professionalism than I have seen in 30 years in business. You had every reason to walk away and let the deal die. Instead, you found a way to protect yourself and complete what you started. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Thank you, I said, genuinely moved. I also want you to know something, Helen continued. After you left that meeting on Monday, Craig Belmont tried to convince us he could close the deal. He could not answer basic questions. He did not understand the integration plan you designed. It became immediately clear that he had taken credit for your work. That is unacceptable to me. And it is why I told Titan we would not move forward without you. Marcus nodded. We trust you, Penny. Not Titan. Not their leadership. You. I appreciate that more than I can say, I said. Helen leaned forward. So here is what I want to propose. We are going to close this acquisition in 60 days. After that, I would like to offer you a position here at Global Tech. I blinked, completely surprised. A position? Senior Vice President of Strategic Integrations, Helen said. You would run the integration of Titan's software division, and then lead our corporate development function going forward. Base salary of $375,000, equity package worth approximately $2 million over 4 years, full benefits, and a relocation package to our Denver headquarters if you choose to move. Or we can work out a split arrangement if you prefer to stay in Chicago. I could not speak for a moment. Marcus smiled. We have been talking about this since Tuesday. You are exactly the kind of leader we want at Global Tech. Strategic, ethical, unshakable under pressure. You proved all of that this week. I need time to think about this, I said. Of course, Helen said. Let us close the Titan deal first. Then we can discuss details. But I wanted you to know the offer is real. I left that meeting feeling like my entire life had shifted. I had gone from being fired and humiliated to holding a consulting contract worth millions and a job offer that would change everything. But I was not naive. I knew there was more work to do. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked 16-hour days finalizing the acquisition documents. I coordinated with Titan's legal team, Global Tech's attorneys, investment bankers, accountants, and compliance specialists. Every detail had to be perfect. During this time, I noticed something concerning in Titan's financial disclosures. The revenue projections for the software division I had built showed stronger growth than the numbers I remembered. I pulled up my historical files and compared them. Someone had inflated the projections. I dug deeper, going through quarterly reports, board presentations, and internal financial models. The inflated numbers appeared 6 months ago, right after Craig Belmont joined the company. Craig had been overstating the division's performance to make himself look more successful. The real numbers were still good, but Craig's fabrications created material misrepresentations. If Global Tech discovered this during their final due diligence, the deal would collapse. Worse, Titan could face legal liability for fraud. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the evidence. I had 2 choices. I could expose Craig immediately and watch him be destroyed. The temptation was powerful, but exposing him publicly might kill the deal I had worked so hard to save. Or I could stay silent and let the misrepresentation stand. But that would be dishonest to Global Tech, and I would never be able to live with that. There was a third option. I called Amanda Torres and asked for a meeting at a coffee shop, not Titan's office. We met the next morning at a small place in the West Loop. I showed Amanda the documents. Craig inflated these revenue projections 6 months ago. These are the real numbers. They are still solid, but they are not what Craig has been reporting to Richard and the board. If Global Tech finds this during final due diligence, the deal dies and Titan faces serious legal exposure. You have 72 hours to correct the financials internally and disclose the error to Global Tech. If you do not, I will. Amanda went pale. Penny, if we disclose this, Global Tech might walk away. If you do not disclose it and they find it themselves, they definitely will walk away, I said. And then they will sue. This is fraud, Amanda. You know it, I know it, and Craig knows it. Amanda closed her eyes. I will talk to Richard today. You have 72 hours. I repeated. I am putting this in writing to Douglas Hampton. If Titan does not disclose by Friday, I will inform Global Tech myself and terminate my consulting agreement. Amanda nodded slowly. You are doing the right thing. I know, I said. That afternoon, Amanda called me. Richard has launched an internal investigation. He wants to meet with you. No meetings until the investigation is complete, and you disclose to Global Tech, I said. The investigation took 48 hours. What they found was worse than I expected. Craig had been inflating numbers not just for the software division, but for other areas he oversaw. He had done the same thing at his previous company, which was why they had quietly forced him out. Titan's hiring process had failed. Richard had been so impressed with Craig's resume and interview that he did not do deep reference checks. On Friday morning, Amanda called me. Craig has been suspended pending termination. We are disclosing everything to Global Tech today. Richard wants you to be part of that conversation. I will be there, I said. The disclosure meeting with Global Tech was tense. Helen Rutherford sat across the conference table with her arms folded, her face unreadable. Marcus Bradford looked disappointed. Diane Foster, their general counsel, was taking notes rapidly. Richard Stanton delivered the news himself. He explained that an internal investigation had revealed financial misrepresentations in the materials provided to Global Tech. He took full responsibility for the hiring failure that allowed Craig Belmont to join the company. He provided corrected financial statements and supporting documentation. When Richard finished, Helen looked at me. Penny, I understand you discovered these discrepancies. I did, I said. During my final document review, I reported them to Titan immediately and insisted on disclosure. Why? Helen asked. Because it was the right thing to do, I said simply. I built the software division you are acquiring. I know its real performance, which is strong, but I could not let you close a deal based on false information. That would have been dishonest to you, and it would have put both companies at legal risk. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, This is exactly why we wanted to work with you in the first place. You do the right thing even when it is hard. Marcus nodded. The corrected numbers are still solid. We are still interested in the acquisition, but we need to adjust the price to reflect the accurate projections and the additional risk this situation has created. Over the next 2 hours, we negotiated a revised deal structure. The purchase price dropped from $680 million to $650 million. Global Tech added stronger warranties and indemnifications, but the deal stayed alive. When we finished, Helen shook my hand. Thank you for your integrity, Penny. Most people would have stayed quiet or used this to cause damage. You did neither. I wanted to complete what I started, I said. The right way. After the meeting, Richard asked if he could speak with me privately. We went to a smaller conference room. Penny, Richard said, and his voice was heavy. I made a catastrophic mistake hiring Craig. I did not do my due diligence. I did not listen when you raised concerns, and I allowed him to fire you in the most humiliating way possible. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you a debt I can never repay. What is happening with Craig? I asked. He is being terminated for cause, effective today. No severance. We have documentation of his fraudulent reporting. If he threatens litigation, we will defend aggressively. Good, I said. Richard hesitated. The board wants to create an ethics training program in your name. We also want to establish a scholarship fund for women in corporate strategy. I am personally contributing $100,000 to start it. It is not enough, but it is something. I felt unexpected emotion rising in my throat. Richard, that means more to me than you know. You could have destroyed this company out of revenge, Richard said. You had every reason to. Instead, you saved us because it was the right thing to do. That is leadership, Penny. Real leadership. I should have recognized it years ago. We shook hands, and I left Titan's offices for what I thought might be the last time. But the week was not over yet. 3 days later, I received a call from Helen Rutherford. "Penny, can you come to our offices tomorrow afternoon? I want to discuss that other matter we talked about." I knew what she meant, the job offer. The next afternoon, I sat in Helen's office on the 40th floor of Global Tech's headquarters. The view of downtown Chicago was spectacular. "I am going to be direct," Helen said. "We want you at Global Tech, Senior Vice President of Strategic Integrations. You would lead the integration of Titan's software platform and then run our entire corporate development function. We need someone who thinks strategically, acts ethically, and cannot be shaken by pressure or politics. That is you." "I am honored," I said. "The offer I mentioned before stands. $375,000 base salary, $2 million in equity over 4 years, full benefits, relocation to Denver with a housing allowance. Or we can structure a split arrangement. You would report directly to me. You would have a team of 12 people initially, growing as we expand." I thought about what this meant. Leaving consulting, joining another corporation, starting over in a new city, but also building something at a much larger scale, working for a leader I respected, being valued for exactly who I was. "Can I have 1 week to think about it?" I asked. "Take 2 weeks," Helen said. "This is a big decision. But Penny, I want you to know something. I have been CEO of Global Tech for 8 years. I have hired hundreds of executives. I have never been more certain about a hire than I am about you." I went home and called Patricia Caldwell, my mentor. Patricia was 70 now, retired and living in Arizona. But we still talked monthly. "Patricia, I need your advice," I said, and I told her everything. Patricia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "What do you want, Penny? Not what you think you should want. What do you actually want?" I thought about it. I want to build something meaningful. I want to work for people I respect. I want to be valued for my integrity, not just my results. And I want to prove that doing the right thing leads to success, not failure. "Then you have your answer," Patricia said. "You have proven everything you needed to prove. Now go build something new." The next day, I called Helen Rutherford and accepted the job offer. The closing for the Global Tech acquisition happened 6 weeks later, in early November. All parties gathered at the offices of the law firm handling the transaction, a massive place downtown with marble floors and conference rooms designed to intimidate. Richard Stanton was there with Amanda Torres. Helen Rutherford brought Marcus Bradford and Diane Foster. Investment bankers, attorneys, accountants, and compliance officers filled the room, and I was there as the independent consultant who had made it all possible. The deal had been finalized at $650 million. Wire transfers were queued and ready to execute. Stacks of documents waited for signatures. Richard spoke first, giving brief remarks about the transaction's strategic importance. He specifically acknowledged my contribution, saying, "Penny Lawson's unwavering professionalism and integrity made this deal possible. We are grateful." Helen spoke about the exciting future of the combined companies and the value both teams would create together. Then we signed, page after page, moving through the closing checklist methodically. It took 90 minutes. When the final signature was complete, the attorneys confirmed that all conditions had been satisfied. The deal was done. Amanda Torres handed me an envelope containing my consulting fees and success bonus. 20% of Titan's $17 million success fee was $3.4 million. After taxes, approximately $2 million net. I held the envelope and felt the weight of everything. 18 months of work. Being fired. Fighting back with integrity. And now, financial security. And a new beginning. People began gathering their belongings, shaking hands, and making plans for celebratory dinners. I was putting documents into my briefcase when Amanda pulled me aside. "Penny, Richard asked me to give you this," she said, handing me another envelope marked personal and confidential. "What is it?" I asked. He said you should read it privately, Amanda said. But I want you to know, everything he says in there is true. I put the envelope in my bag and finished packing up. I said goodbye to Helen and Marcus, confirming my start date at Global Tech in 30 days. I thanked Amanda for her professionalism during a difficult situation. Then I left. I sat in my car in the parking garage and opened Richard's letter. It was handwritten, 3 pages on Titan Solutions letterhead. Penny, it began. I am writing this because I need you to know something that I cannot say publicly. I am retiring in 6 months. This decision has been made. I had been planning to recommend Craig Belmont as my successor to the board. That plan was based on his resume, his confidence, and my complete failure to see who he really was. What happened with you and Craig forced me to confront something painful. I had lost touch with what really matters. I had become focused on appearances and credentials instead of character and results. I brought in someone who looked impressive but had no integrity, and I failed to protect someone who embodied everything I should have been looking for in a leader. You showed me what real leadership looks like. You had every reason to destroy this company out of revenge. You could have let the deal collapse, exposed our vulnerabilities, and walked away with your head high. Instead, you saved us because it was the right thing to do. You protected Global Tech by insisting on honest disclosure. Even though it reduced your own compensation, you put integrity above personal gain at every turn. I am sorry, Penny. I am sorry I did not see Craig for who he was. I am sorry I did not protect you. You deserved better from me, and you will never know how much I regret that. I have recommended to our board that Titan create a mandatory ethics training program for all executives. I have named it the Penny Lawson Leadership Excellence Program. I am also personally contributing $100,000 to establish a scholarship fund for young women pursuing careers in corporate strategy and development. The first scholarship will be awarded in your name. These gestures are insufficient, but they are what I can do. I hope you build something extraordinary at Global Tech. You deserve nothing less. With respect and regret, Richard. I sat in my car and cried. Not from sadness, but from something I had not felt in a long time. Recognition. Not just of my work, but of my character. I wiped my eyes and was about to start the engine when I saw someone walking toward their car 3 spaces away. Craig Belmont. He was alone, carrying a cardboard box. His shoulders were hunched. He looked diminished. Our eyes met. For a moment, I felt a rush of vindication, but then I saw something in his face. Not just defeat, but a kind of desperate confusion. He genuinely did not understand what he had done wrong. Craig stopped walking and rolled down his window when he reached his car. Penny, he called out. I could have driven away, but I got out of my car instead. What do you want, Craig? I asked. I underestimated you, he said. Not an apology, just a statement. I walked closer. No, Craig. You underestimated integrity. You thought shortcuts and politics would get you ahead. You thought you could take credit for other people's work and build a career on appearances. But in the end, doing the right thing always wins. I hope you learn that. He stared at me. You really believe that? I know that, I said, because I just lived it. I turned and walked back to my car. As I drove out of the parking garage, I saw Craig in my rearview mirror, still standing there, still holding that box. I felt something unexpected. Not pity exactly, but a kind of hope that he might actually learn something from this. Then I drove home to start packing for Denver. 6 months later, I was standing in my office at Global Tech in Denver, looking out at the Rocky Mountains in the distance. It was late April, and the mountains still had snow on their peaks. The view never got old. Bailey was asleep in his dog bed in the corner. One of the things I had negotiated in my employment contract at Global Tech was a dog-friendly office. Helen had laughed and said yes immediately. The integration of Titan's software platform was exceeding every performance target. The combined technology was saving global tech over $300 million annually in operational costs. My team had grown from 12 people to 28. We had 3 new acquisition targets in the pipeline. Helen had just told me that the board was considering promoting me to executive vice president within the year. I was 33 years old, financially secure, and building something meaningful with people I respected. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda Torres. We had stayed in touch and met for coffee whenever I was in Chicago on business. Richard's retirement party is next month, the text said. Will you come? He specifically asked if you would be there. I texted back. I will be there, Amanda responded. Also, the scholarship fund awarded its first scholarship yesterday. A young woman named Catherine Morgan. She is studying finance at Northwestern. Richard wants you to meet her. I smiled. The Penny Lawson Leadership Excellence Scholarship. The ethics training program at Titan. These things would outlast all of us. That afternoon, I received an email from a woman named Catherine Morgan. She thanked me for the scholarship and asked if I would be willing to answer some questions about building a career in corporate development. I spent an hour crafting a thoughtful response. I told her about the importance of preparation, integrity, and building relationships based on trust. I told her to protect herself legally, but lead with character. I told her that doing the right thing, even when it was hard, was the only path to sustainable success. Then I invited her to have coffee next time I was in Chicago. She wrote back within minutes, thanking me and saying yes. I thought about Patricia Caldwell, who had mentored me when I was starting out. She had given me the tools and wisdom to protect myself. Now I could do the same for Catherine. Patricia and I were having dinner the following week. She was flying to Denver to visit, and I could not wait to show her everything I had built. A few weeks later, I attended Richard Stanton's retirement party at a hotel in downtown Chicago. The ballroom was filled with Titan employees, board members, clients, and industry colleagues. Richard gave a speech about his 40 years in business and the lessons he had learned. Near the end of his remarks, he said something that made the room go quiet. The best leaders are not the ones who never make mistakes, Richard said. They are the ones who learn from their mistakes and have the courage to change. I made a significant mistake 18 months ago. I hired someone who had the right resume but the wrong character. And in doing so, I nearly destroyed something precious. A deal that would define our company's future. And, more importantly, I nearly destroyed the career of someone who embodied everything I should have been looking for. Penny Lawson taught me what leadership really means. Not through words, but through actions. She could have let our company fall apart out of revenge. Instead, she saved us because it was the right thing to do. That is integrity. That is character. That is leadership. He looked directly at me. Penny, thank you for showing me what matters. The room applauded. I felt my face flush, but I smiled and nodded. After the party, Richard introduced me to Catherine Morgan, the scholarship recipient. She was 20 years old, bright-eyed and eager. Miss Lawson, she said, shaking my hand. I cannot thank you enough for this opportunity. Please, call me Penny, I said. And you earned that scholarship through your own work. I am just glad I could help. Can I ask you something? Catherine said. In your email, you told me that integrity is the foundation of success. But how do you maintain that when the system does not always reward it? How do you do the right thing when it costs you something? I thought about Craig firing me in that boardroom. About choosing to disclose his fraud even though it could have killed my deal. About walking away from revenge to build something better. You maintain integrity by understanding that it is not about short-term rewards, I said. It is about long-term sustainability. People remember how you made them feel and whether you kept your word. Your reputation is built slowly through 1,000 small choices to do the right thing, even when no one is watching. And yes, sometimes it costs you something in the moment, but in the long run, it is the only path that leads to real success and real peace. Catherine nodded slowly, absorbing this. That makes sense. Thank you. Keep in touch, I said. I mean that. If you ever need advice or just want to talk through a difficult decision, reach out, she smiled. I will. I left the party feeling full. Not just satisfied, but genuinely happy. The next morning, I flew back to Denver. Bailey was waiting for me at home. My team had prepared updates on our 3 acquisition targets. Helen wanted to meet on Wednesday to discuss strategy. I sat at my desk and thought about everything that had happened. 18 months ago, I was standing in a boardroom being fired in front of my client. Today, I was building something meaningful at a company that valued integrity. Craig Belmont had tried to take everything from me. Instead, he had given me the opportunity to prove what I was really made of. I had learned that protection comes from preparation. 3 years ago, I had negotiated Exhibit F into my contract. That clause was not my checkmate move. My integrity was. The clause just gave me the platform to demonstrate it. I had learned that real power does not come from position or politics. It comes from character, preparation, and the courage to do what is right even when it is difficult. I had learned that success built on shortcuts and lies is temporary. Success built on integrity and value is permanent. And I had learned that the best revenge is not destruction. It is building something better and helping others do the same. I opened my email and started typing a response to another young woman who had reached out asking for career advice. This was becoming a pattern. Word was spreading that I was willing to mentor. I smiled as I wrote. This was how change happened. Not through dramatic gestures, but through one person helping another, sharing hard-won wisdom, and creating a path for those who came next. Patricia Caldwell had done it for me. Now I could do it for others. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen. Board meeting went well. Executive VP promotion approved for July. Congratulations. I texted back a simple thank you. Then I looked out at those mountains and thought about Catherine Morgan, about Patricia Caldwell, about every woman who had fought to build a career in a system that was not designed for them. We were changing it. One choice, one deal, one act of integrity at a time. And that was the real victory. I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where doing the right thing cost you something in the short term, but you did it anyway? How did it turn out? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you are not already subscribed, consider subscribing so you do not miss future stories about resilience, integrity, and fighting back with grace. Share this with someone who needs to hear that doing the right thing, even when it is hard, is always worth it. Sometimes the people we care about need that reminder. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your character is your greatest asset. Protect it, build on it, and never compromise it for short-term gains. The right opportunities will find you when you stay true to who you are. Take care of yourselves, and remember that integrity always wins in the end.